My name's Katherine Fortier and I live in The Hague in the Netherlands. Although I'm originally Canadian, I've lived here 30 years now. And at Petertide, I will be ordained in the Church of England as deacon, with a view eventually to be ordained later on as priest. I grew up as a PK, as a pastor's kid. My dad was a clergyman in a mainline Protestant denomination in Canada, the biggest mainline denomination called the United Church of Canada. And so I grew up in the church, but in my teen years, as many people do, I took a few side journeys. I experimented with Roman Catholicism, and I even explored Islam. And then it was in my sort of early 20s that I really came to know Jesus, and to really decide that coming home to Jesus was like my prodigal daughter moment. And my husband and I, who I met in my 20s around that time, is Roman Catholic. And so the two of us were looking for a church where we knew we'd be happy raising children and attending together. And so for us, the Anglican Church really was like the via media, where we both felt kind of instantly that we recognized and that we were recognized. And so I've been worshiping in Anglican churches ever since. And we came to the Netherlands nearly 30 years ago on a 3-year contract for my husband's work, as many expats do. And then that contract was renewed and renewed and renewed again. And we really like the life here. And one of the first things that I looked for when we arrived with 2 small children in tow was a church. And luckily for me, there was an Anglican church quite close by. We were in The Hague and there's an Anglican church in The Hague. And so it meant so much to us to find a place to worship together as a family, and also to have an instant community for support when you're so far away from home. And I think that's the experience of a lot of members of Anglican chaplaincies throughout Europe. So my career was as a child and educational psychologist. During the time that I've been discerning for ordained ministry, certainly there's been a complete sort of reorientation of my life. I think in the diplomatic community, in the medical community, in the justice community, there are people who they're not working in the church. They might not even be Christians, but they're working for the common good. They're working to help others. They're working for God's vision of the world as it should be, even if that's not the language they would put to it. And so for them to hear she's quitting her job as a psychologist and she's going to go be a priest, they're like, well, good for her. How beautiful. One of the really interesting experiences that I've had during this training period was being asked to deliver the sermon at a ceremony on Remembrance Day. And this is a ceremony that is at a war graves site, and it is arranged by every year a different ambassador from a Commonwealth country. And to be able to speak about the cost of war and the value of peace to that kind of community, and to be invited as a representative of the Anglican Church, to be able to speak those kinds of words to that kind of audience really shows how the church is still really relevant and has a voice in today's world. And it just felt like such an honor and a privilege. And I got a lot of positive feedback, which was also personally really affirming and encouraging. So I think that sometimes in the diocese in Europe, we play a slightly different role than a village church or a downtown church in England, because of the international aspect of our lives here. I'm really looking forward to moving around in the community with my clerical collar on, because I think it's important. I sometimes feel as though I won the marriage lottery, in the sense that my husband is so supportive and has been so supportive. I mean, we've taken a massive pay cut and a massive change in life, and he's just been completely behind me and beside me. And so as I prepare for ordination, I really appreciate people's prayers for me, but I'd love them to include my husband in their prayers.